Hello. Today I'm here with an intimacy coordinator slash intimacy director. One is theater, one is film. Apparently, I just learned that. And someone who is a musician, magician, and clown. Introducing the great Charlie Baker. Woo, woo, woo. Amazing. So, Charlie and I go way back. We were actually roommates a long time ago, over a decade ago,
Which is
or
wild.
like 10 years ago. Wild, wild, wild. So I've been a little bit of part of your vocal journey, I guess, but let's start out with your background. So tell me a little bit about how you grew up voice-wise. Like, what was your family loud? Where'd you grow up? What's your accent, etc.?
So I grew up mostly in a suburb outside of Dallas, Texas, with
Mm-hmm.
none of my family is from Texas. My dad is from Ohio, and my mom is from a military family, so she moved around a lot. And my mother
I
was
didn't know that. I thought all your family was like Texans.
not at all. It's how I escaped having a Texas accent. My mother was very proud while I was growing up that she was not a person who dropped her G's. Um,
Wow.
so um, didn't have that Southern influence, and then spent kindergarten and part of first grade in London, at an American school in London, but still surrounded by European accents.
Okay, I do remember when we were in college, when you would start drinking, your London accent would start to come out a little bit. I just thought that was the most fantastic thing ever. Does that
Well,
still happen?
not as much. I think the funniest thing with that, whenever we actually, what happens a lot still, and especially when I sing, is that people will think that I'm Irish. Um, a little less so now, because I'm working, as we'll talk about later, not speaking so forward in my mouth. But I used to speak and dictate towards like the front of my teeth, and I had a very
Hmm.
melodic sort of cadence.
I
And
remember
so,
that. It was almost like you were overcorrecting, especially with the R's.
yes, 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 yes.
Huh. Was there something more in that? Like, did you feel more intelligent if you were really enunciating your words like that?
Actually, it's because I was in speech therapy growing up.
Hmm.
I sucked my thumb for a super long time, and so when my teeth grew in, instead of meeting like this, they were like that.
Huh.
Um, and so I had braces and some other orthodontic stuff, but I was in speech therapy to learn how to re-pronounce or reshape my S's specifically. Um, and so I think there was a mix of that, and I spoke very quickly. So I was told by adults very often that I was difficult to understand.
Hmm.
Um, and I can also admit that I was very pretentious when I was growing up, and so there probably was some sort of intellectual pride connected with speaking well.
Yeah, especially in Texas, huh?
Yeah.
Did people around you have Dallas accents?
Uh not not by any means stereotypical. I suppose I less people my age, but I guess adults.
Yeah.
Adults around me had sort of Dallas Fort Worth accents.
I always find that fascinating because people our age, we're what, 32? Right?
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
30, people our age, from the Dallas area especially, but from Texas in general, don't usually have Texas accents. And I think it's kind of sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, Texas accents are like nice. They're like all chesty and I think they're beautiful, but I think that's a pretty important thing to consider, like with films that are being done or plays, that a lot of people don't have that stereotypical Texas sound. Like
Yeah.
not that many people sound like Matthew McConaughey anymore.
No, especially not in the metroplex areas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're just cities. All right. Now, other than a Texas accent, you've also had a very, very unique journey as a trans person.
I
So,
have
can you
indeed.
talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. My voice has always been a point of sensitivity or dysphoria. I always felt like it was too high. Um, I was, except my singing, I was very stoked to be an alto 2 in choir growing up, and I loved singing the tenor line anytime they let me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I sang and wrote music really prolifically. Whenever I moved to Chicago, I did Second City's Music Improv Conservatory and joined a music improv team that did a full 45-minute improvised rock opera, which was really fun. And then I went on testosterone, which is never a choice that I would change at all, except to do it earlier if I had the access to do so.
Okay,
Um,
can you, because there will be listeners from around the world, so explain a
yes,
little bit what that process is. Dumb it down a little.
for sure. So I was born, and the doctor said it's a girl. Um, Weirdly, with me specifically, he said it's a girl, but this baby has a dimple that I've never seen on girls before in its lower back. Um, so
Just to have
genetics
a
are weird,
dimple.
and it's more than chromosomes. Yeah, I have like little dimples at the bottom of my spine.
Oh, that's cute.
They kind of look like this, I guess, but closer
Yeah,
together.
a little butt crack smile.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
um, but the doctor said I was a girl. Growing up, I always felt like I was a boy. Like I was 3 and 4 years old, correcting my aunt that I was her nephew. And no one punished me. Like the word transgender wasn't in our vocabulary, so no one around me knew to see those signs and think, oh, this person might need this sort of support or might, you know, want a different name or want to be called different pronouns. Um, and so grew up just kind of feeling, people say often born on the wrong body, and it wasn't that feeling. My body's always been my body. I just felt like it betrayed me at puberty. And part of that was my voice not changing, not getting a fun little Adam's apple to just play with in the mirror and watch it go up and down. Um, and then in college and really post college, when I moved to Chicago and had not only queer resources, like queer community centers, but I also found a community of trans people. And I found trans guys on YouTube who showed me for the first time, oh my God, I can be trans and be quote unquote normal. Um, like I can just have a wife and, as much of a house as capitalism will let me have. And I can pursue my dreams and be the human that I always wanted to be instead of the human like I always felt like I had to put up with. Um,
Interesting.
oh, my being felt like a compensation.
Right, right. So being a what I'm gonna say might sound really bad. I'm sorry.
No,
Being a
you're
straight
good.
white male is definitely easier than being a butch lesbian. Yes?
Oh yeah. Oh,
Okay.
100%.
So
Um,
you've got to live both of those so you can really see.
oh, gaining male privilege at 25 is wild, especially when it starts coming from your own friends and the people that knew you before. And so you really see how subconscious it is. Like, I
Whoa.
began to be given more conversational space amongst my friends.
Oh, that has to do with voice. So let's talk a little bit more about that. What do you mean?
Uh,
Like
so
your opinions were more valid because you were a man?
mix of that and also just like people would actually be quiet and wait for me to speak. There was more vocal space given to me to fill, and it was very strange actually after being raised to minimize myself and after my own complicated feelings, and by complicated feelings I mean self-hatred about my own voice, to be given now space and attention to fill and to be expected to fill it vocally and physically was bizarre.
That is cool. That is cool. So how did that change as you started taking the hormones, as you started taking testosterone and your voice started changing and becoming deeper? Were you given more space then?
uh I was. And for the longest time, also, I would physically be perceived as male until I would talk. And then people
Mm,
would over apologize and correct themselves. And it was like, no, no, you had it right the first time. Um,
yeah.
but it
How long
was
did that process take?
uh, I have the most memory of it in terms of singing. So the first 6 months is minor change. Your voice starts cracking and sounding a little bit raspy.
Mm.
Um, but like it's not seriously dropping or consistently dropping. And then there were a good 18 months where I felt like I couldn't sing anymore. Because I just didn't know this new instrument. I didn't know its range. I suddenly had these new low notes, especially in the morning. Um, I finally understood why all the tenors' voice used to crack in high school, because my voice was cracking for the first
Oh,
time trying to sing high notes. I had a
why
falsetto.
do tenors' voices crack in high
Uh,
school?
Flipping from falsetto into chest voice is it's different from head. So people who sing and continued singing past college are gonna correct me and yell at me, and that's fine. Essentially, head voice or is created by a nice open space in the vocal cords and lots of air passing through. And falsetto is tightness without tension, and so it's the vocal cords stringing themselves very long, and it feels super different.
Mm.
It's bizarre.
Wow. So there's not much of that middle range then that you can get with a female voice?
It's there. Uh, I guess no, it's smaller that range because the
Yeah.
higher
Yeah,
bit
and that's why it would
range.
crack.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, Started learning how to throat sing, which was very fun also because why not?
That's a whole rabbit hole that we are not going to go down right now
Fair and valid.
because we could, but we're not. But I love that. Um, so now, how would you describe your relationship with your voice?
uh, Now I would say it's singing wise, it's like getting reintroduced to an instrument, but now one that is ready to play.
Mm.
Um, I have these lovely, rich baritone and even verging on higher bass notes and registers, which are fun. The biggest thing I've been playing with is the timbre of my voice. So I say this without judgment, but as observation passed forward, and I include myself, a lot of transmasculine people, like me, people who, in this specific instance that I'm talking about, go on hormones that affect their voices, um, develop what is in community known as trans voice, which is essentially because we were raised and taught to use our nasal resonators
Mm.
to pronunciate, but men and cis men speak with their soft palate lifted in the back of their throat.
Hmm.
Um, and so I've been kind of playing with exercises. I'm very self conscious about playing with it in public yet because it still feels like I'm putting on a voice, even if that put on voice feels more comfortable for myself. Um,
Why does it feel more comfortable? It feels more comfortable in your body, or it feels more comfortable for how you're perceived?
uh, it feels more comfortable for how I perceive myself
Okay.
because I fully recognize that at this point my voice, the only thing it affects is that a lot of people think that I'm gay.
Mm.
People don't assume I'm trans; they assume that I'm gay, and it's also
Yeah.
because I'm short. I'm very comfortable with being flamboyant, my presentation and my
You look
mannerisms,
short.
quote unquote short. I
I like
don't
you
feel
short.
short. I'm 5'7". I'm
Yeah.
very
That's so
comfy
great.
with it. Um, but uh, and so, but I'm aware of my uh of how my voice sounds.
Hmm. So a lot of times when someone says that a male voice is more feminine, it's just because it's in the nose.
100%. So
Huh.
the what I've been playing with, thanks to TikToks actually, um, is thinking of to oversimplify the SpongeBob voice versus the Patrick voice, because
Wow.
without changing pitch at all. So if I'm only talking at this pitch and I begin moving forward into my nose, it almost starts to sound a little bit higher. And then again, without changing pitch, if I move it back and I lift my soft palate and I add a little bit more breath behind, um, it's a little bit more of that announcery sort of. masculine voice,
Whoa, that's so
right?
cool. So you don't feel like when you're doing that though, and trying to start to put that in real life, you don't feel like you're putting something on. Yeah, because I know that I know for my singing voice in particular, I'm working on just being me. And because I want to put like, I want to put an affectation on it. And I have a voice teacher right now who she's like, no, don't do it. Just be you. It's so much braver to show up just as whatever you found you are,
Hmm.
and it all comes from breath as well.
Yeah.
So I'm
And
interested in what that feels like for you.
I certainly think there's a fine line. A thing that I don't want to do is begin speaking in announcer voice all of the time. Uh,
I find
that
that
is.
wildly attractive. It must be like the dialect coaching me.
it's very fun to be able to access that.
Yeah.
But it's because I actually am working on a very similar thing in my own singing journey is removing
Mhm.
affectation. But there's, at least in the way that I am working, a difference between affectation and habit.
Mm.
And so it's more uh, habitually beginning to use this soft palate area.
Huh.
Um,
What sorts of exercises do you do to warm up the soft palate and to just get used to that?
uh, a little bit of Darth Vader breath. And so in uh, we'd always use the word cookie. So and really feeling that your soft palate lifting up there. Um, Sometimes just walking around my apartment and talking like Patrick, very much overdoing it.
Mhm.
But seeing how far I can push it and how much breath support is required, because that's
Mm.
the I just unlocked the ability to breath support at that level. And I very much feel like it's because when I was first starting to play, it very much felt put on. I felt self
Mm.
conscious. It felt false. And so I had issues finding the breath to speak there. Um,
Oh, wait, back that up. So, because it felt put on, you weren't able to breathe. Because usually you
I think
breathe
so.
and then it feels less put on, but you kind of went backwards there. Because it didn't feel good here, you couldn't breathe. I
I
can't see
think
my stomach.
so.
You couldn't
Yeah.
breathe. Huh. That's interesting. So now have you found that it takes more breath in order to access that backspace?
It takes more breath, but the nice thing is that it allows me to move at a slower pace. One, because I have
Mhm.
to think a little bit about what I'm doing here and what I'm doing here. Um, but it allows me to add consciousness to the breath and realize, like, oh, I
Mm.
can't just push out words on what's in here. I actually need to take the pause, fill up, and continue speaking, and realize that I'm worth that time that it takes to do that.
Interesting. I I'm curious, was there a difference in relationship to your breath after you transitioned as well?
Ooh.
I know for me, I got a divorce and I had a baby, got a divorce, and after I got a divorce, I was suddenly able to breathe for the first time in my life. Like actually really breathe. And sometimes I lose it because it is all based in habits and muscularity and all of that. But I've been working on my breath connection for what 10, 15 years and I finally can do it better. That's why I started singing. And so I'm interested, did
Mm.
you have any sort of revelation like that where you realized, "Oh, my breath is not just muscular habits, it's also related to trauma or related to my thoughts on myself."
I mean, honestly, top surgery, easy.
Yeah, yeah.
The As soon as I was coherent past surgery, I still had a medical compression vest on. I still had drains in my body.
Mhm.
Um, but not just physically not having to wear two sports bras or a binder anymore, but the comfort and freedom of just finally feeling like my body was mine, of finally feeling safe if I had an interaction with someone.
Hmm.
Um, because it's much, much more likely that someone is going to brush against my chest or my back than my groin area.
Yeah. Yeah. Did that sense of safety affect your voice at all? Or affect just the openness you felt?
I'm sure that it must have. I can't specifically recall
You're like,
the moment.
sorry, Audrey, I'm just a straight white male now. I don't have to think about these types of things anymore. On to the next subject. Sorry, I'm giving you shit because we've known each other so long.
Oh, you're fully alive
Okay,
too.
so
I'd expect you
so
to.
in your clown work, you don't use any voice, right? Do you use any sounds?
I do. The current show that I'm working on, I use no language and no vocal sounds at all because I'm really
Mm,
interested in storytelling that goes beyond the need for language,
yeah.
or even the need for hearing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I'm a very big fan of, I will say, gibberish or soft French,
Love that.
because a lot of my typical clown noises are je te bois de dos, je sais pas no, do. Just very, uh, and I think my clowns are very high pitched and very
Wait.
soft.
Let's back up. Can we explain what clowning is? Because a lot of people think of clowns as something creepy or think of it like I love clowns and I love the art of clowning. And you've been to clown school, yeah?
I have. I just
So
finished my
just
second
back up
year.
a second and let's educate the people for a minute.
Indeed.
Because I keep saying that I love clowns, and everyone looks at me like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, I have lots of friends who've been to clown school," and they're like, "No, stop!" I'm like, I have the highest regard and highest respect for clowns. Incredible. Okay, so what is a clown?
Yes. So functionally, I'm going to start functionally and then move forward. Functionally, in a circus as we think of it, clowns are like stage managers, kind of, for the on-stage stuff.
Mm,
We help with transition, or with deck crew rather, stage managers. We help with scene changes and transitions. We can help clear props or clear bodies or go fill time. There's a section called the Clown Alley, and it's because in French tradition, they would always say "clowns go," which is "clowns allez, allez, clowns allez." So the Clown Alley developed. In terms of what actually is a clown, um, that depend. It comes from a lot of different traditions. There is the fool, as we think of it in the medieval times, which one of my teachers described as the clown with murder in his eyes. Sacha Baron Cohen. It is
mm,
the clown with agenda.
mm,
Um, there is the red nose sort of birthday bozo the clown that we think of, which is supposed to sort of be the every person. It's someone that we can all relate to and someone that we can say, well, at least I'm not that human. Or, oh my gosh, that was me, but at least I did it in private.
mm,
Um, and so the clown is there to bring joy, very, very often to critique. Um, I am a big fan of not horror clowns, but theatrical clowns with teeth.
mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah,
Okay.
I hope that
So
that
you
answered your
have a whole
question.
one-man show that you're doing, that you're creating right now that will hopefully be coming soon to a city near you, which is really cool. And you're also an intimacy director, an intimacy coordinator. So you've got a lot of job titles that I think are or a lot of titles in general that are uh, that the public can be educated on because it's so cool. You've got great jobs. So what is an intimacy coordinator?
Yes. An intimacy coordinator, intimacy director. Not only do we choreograph intimate scenes on stage and screen, and intimate can be anything from sexual to sensual to moments of vulnerability, moments of hyperexposure being nudity or childbirth or PTSD attacks that happen on stage. Um, I tell my actors or the shows that I work with, if it feels intimate to you, it is intimacy and it is worth my time. And what else that time includes is having conversations about boundaries. Um, really facilitating conversations between the directors and the actors of what is the director's ideal vision for the scene, how does that align with the actor's boundary, and how do those two things come together with how all of us together understand not just the overall story that we're telling with this art piece, but the intimate storytelling and
Hmm.
that art within this piece.
So you're using your voice literally for things like singing, for your everyday life, but you're also using your voice figuratively because you are a voice for the actor.
Very much so. And also hopefully using that voice or providing those actors space like I talked about being provided earlier. Because especially now that I am a white straight male, I think it's very important for me to know the difference in between when to hold the mic and when to pass the mic.
Mm,
Um, and so a lot of my work is also facilitating spaces where actors feel safe to use their voice either to me or to the space of, hey, I love the direction of this scene. Can we rework this so that my character doesn't have to have their their buttocks exposed or whatever it is? And really making sure that those voices feel valued. And
mm.
also, in terms of the choreography side, getting people to share and act very intimate sounds in very public places.
Yeah, walk me through that process a little bit. How does that happen? How do you get someone to share that or get
Uh,
them comfortable enough to do that?
for sure. It absolutely begins with never starting from a person's personal experience. Um, it,
The exact opposite of what everyone would think.
um, which totally makes sense. Especially when to people outside of the industry, when you hear about ways in the craft, often what you hear of is method acting, which is its own box that I'm going to leave on the shelf for right now. Um, but in terms of intimacy, it's incredibly important that I never pull from an actor's personal life for their character. Um, that does not need to be necessary. That said, an actor is able to bring whatever they desire to. I am never going to shut down someone's process unless that process is actively harmful to themselves or others. Um, but very similar to as you talked about earlier, I always begin with breath. And so even while I'm choreographing things in the room, or if it's a film and we just have a sort of rough blocking time, I will measure time in breath and beats in breath. So you will kiss for 2 breaths and then release so that you don't have people kissing going 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi.
Do they do people struggle with that even? Like, okay, gonna like is it an inhale and an exhale?
It's these are actually the exact conversations that we have.
Hmm.
So it's the kiss is never done until all those questions are answered, and we start with placeholders. So I'll
Hmm.
usually start with people going forehead to forehead, uh, and people find out really quickly that 2 breaths is much longer than they think it is. Uh, Especially when a very uh, not even a hack, I don't want to call it, but a quick trick that I use very often is 2 people breathing in unison reads as chemistry. Uh,
Hmm.
and so I will begin my scenes there, or if it's a very different kind of scene, tell my actors if that's what this means. I don't think these characters are ever breathing together. Um,
What do you mean? Like if they don't have chemistry?
or if we're doing, say like Streetcar Named Desire, if it is 2 characters who are incredibly unaligned, whether or not the scene gets physical, you can have 2 people sat across from each other at a dining room table, and from their breathing patterns, know that they're about to murder each other as soon as the scene ends,
Wow.
or the exact opposite.
With that example in particular, um, they don't draw from their personal life. So they're just going from breath and experiencing that anger emotion through breath and through the dissonance of each other's breath.
Essentially, so I've become a huge nerd about closure, both for the actors, for the crew, for people involved. And essentially, closure, as I use it in my work, means how do you dive as deeply into character as you want to, and how do you fully towel off when you leave the water?
Mm. Yeah.
Um, and I've become a huge, huge nerd on this thing called polyvagal theory. Um,
Do tell.
it is essentially so sidetracking to go back. In the 70s, there was an experiment done that basically said, hey, if you see a bear and you start running and you're afraid, what order do those things happen in? Do you see the bear and then you are afraid and then you run? Or do you see the bear and you start running, and because your adrenaline is up and it's because you're running, you go, oh, I'm afraid. And the latter is what happens.
Hmm.
And so it's actually incredibly easy for actors and people who are incredibly in touch with their bodies to induce states of hyper arousal, whatever emotional state is needed. Um, it is then part of my job, and ideally the work of the rest of the production as well, to build containers so that that work can happen and people can leave those spaces safely. Um, but
How do they leave those spaces safely?
so there
There's
is
a way to say that.
a to, like, again, very much oversimplify, a recipe for closure um, includes changing the internal rhythm or breath work, engaging in something that is real, that is something tangible in front of you, not something that is an idea, engaging in something that is sensory or tactile, and something that is a button, which is a clear beginning or ending. And so this is when I get my fun fancy prop that my mom got me. So as an example, my mom and I saw this on a show called Christie's Christmas Craft Shows.
Great
Um,
alliteration.
awesome. And this particular wooden thing is not necessary, but it's a great visual. This is a trick that I give actors to use on stage as a character tick if the actor needs it in a moment. And it's also just one of the ways that I personally center myself. So this lovely figure eight shape, we're going to take one of our fingers. You may absolutely do this as well if you would like.
Thank you.
Find a surface near you that looks interesting that may or may not be on your body. So it can be the floor, it can be your leg. And begin tracing this shape. We are engaging in something that is real in front of us, which is we have to focus on the specific shape our arm is drawing. We're not mindlessly doodling, we're drawing a repetitive motion.
Okay.
We are engaging in something sensory. I'm feeling this wood, which also has a sound as my nail runs across it. If I were not speaking, I would assign one of these loops to my inhale and one to my exhale, and draw at the natural pattern that my breath needed at that moment. And then for a clear button, or a clear I know when I'm finished, I stop drawing the shape.
I still feel angry. No, that's a really interesting technique. I've never heard of that before.
It's called infinity breathing.
Mm-hmm. How long typically does it take someone to do the infinity breathing to get out of the space that they were in or to have closure?
Fully depends on the person, the scene. Very often, it's a combination of things. I know for myself, music is a huge in and out of emotional states.
Mm-hmm.
And so another tool that I will use for myself is I will put on a song, and I'm allowed to put the song on repeat. But when that song is done playing for the last time, I have to move forward with my day.
Mm.
And
And then
so,
do you have to listen to another song to get out of it?
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, there's a remix of Shania Twain's "I Feel Like a Woman" that has been my pre doing my clown work song.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been very wonderful to induce states of silliness.
I just watched They Cloned Tyrone. Have you
Oh,
seen
how
that?
is it?
Oh, well, I haven't watched the last 15 minutes because I was alone and I got a little creeped out, but
Ooh,
it was
okay.
great. It was great. But one of the things is that they use spoiler alert, they use music to get people into different states.
Music has
Oh,
a wild effect on people. I mean,
yeah.
when people are when musicians are playing music together, their brainwaves sync up.
Mm-hmm.
So music is another powerful tool, especially singing. If people
Mm,
enjoy singing to music, going in your car, going to a karaoke bar,
yeah.
and making you have to use your breath support to sing a song.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Especially if you pick a song that is either leaning into how you're feeling, you have a place to put your
Mm-hmm.
emotions, or if you absolutely want to go the opposite route, go something very counter, you might
Yeah.
struggle through it, have some very interesting verses in the middle there. Uh,
Yeah, I have
but
my
I
clients do that a lot, especially like public speaking clients or just communication clients when they're struggling to get breath support in whatever they're talking about. I make them sing their favorite song, and at first it's really uncomfortable for them. And then I'm just like, you don't have to be good. And I sing something terrible. I'm like, and I'm singing a song, and it doesn't matter. Blah. Like, so then they'll go into whatever it is that really ignites them, and you see a complete change. And then I have them sing a line and then go into their speech, or sing a line and go into their meeting, or whatever. And you bring all that openness with you. It's such a good trick.
love that.
Yeah, I do too. It's so fun. All right, so we're about through with this talk, but I want to ask you, for anyone who's watching, what advice would you have, especially for anyone going through a transition? What vocal advice do you have?
Uh, Even through the sticky parts, find what's authentically you. That may mean that habits have to change, or at least have to be explored. Like, I'm not going to give the disingenuous, you're perfect just the way you are, because some people desire or need real change about their bodies and about their voices.
Well,
Um,
and also they might not have felt authentically themselves in the first place. So it's
Correct.
not, you might have to change completely, right?
Correct. I mean, that's very much still part of my journey is I finally now feel like I'm actually finding my authentic voice.
Mm.
I've felt closer every step of the way. Um, and so I will say with that also patience, time, uh, and gentility with yourself. Explore the weird things, explore the fun things. Um,
Hmm.
don't try to, God, especially if you're a musical theater major, don't try to sound like everybody else. I know that songs are being written for tenors and they just keep getting higher and they just keep getting higher, but you don't have to be Jeremy Jordan. You don't have to be Jeremy Fisher. I really want to hear what you sound like.
Hmm. Yeah, I think not only for musical theater majors, but for everyone.
Oh, truly.
For everyone, whatever genre you're in. Like, if I sing country music, I want to only sound like fill in the blank.
Right.
Yeah, it takes a lot of courage to find your authentic voice and what feels most closely aligned to you.
Truly. Ooh, I'm also uh this was a quote that I heard in college that helped me a lot. That you, or in this case, your voice, may be the tastiest peach in the whole orchard, and there will just be some people that don't like peaches. So find that authentic voice. Not everyone's going to want to hear it, but find people that will listen to you.
Hmm. And then force them, sit
Force it.
them down and force them to listen.
Yeah. Peaches, peaches,
Don't let
peaches,
them give
peaches,
up until
peaches.
you're done. Yeah, got it. Noted. Yeah. Yeah, so not being a people pleaser, but just filling your own vessel, pleasing yourself, and then you'll be able to help others.
Yeah,
Makes sense. Beautiful. Well, where can we find more of your stuff? You have a website, right?
I do have a website, Exploring Gender. That's XPLORINGGENDER.com. I can't believe I did that right on the first try.
Yeah, I was expecting like gender, like GIN, like a real Texan, but apparently you're not
Oh,
a real Texan.
I truly though. Um, you can find me on there. You can also find me on Instagram or TikTok at I'm Charlie Baker. Uh,
Cool.
I post mostly just on my stories on Instagram, and I've started posting clown stuff on TikTok.
Oh, I cannot wait to see your clown show. I cannot
Hopefully,
wait.
the first deadline ideally is having it ready for the Chicago Physical Theater Festival next year.
Cool. Amazing. Well, break a leg on all of that. And thanks for chatting.
Of course, thank
Mwah.
you. So lovely to see you.